Yo, what's going on YouTube and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. So today we might be talking about a team that I look stupid and they prove everybody wrong, make the playoffs and have a really good season, or they fall from where they were last year. The Philadelphia Flyers is, of course, the team we're talking about today. John Tortorella's led Philadelphia Flyers. Was last season a fluke? They had a really good start to the season and then things fell off bad. They tanked at the end of the season. So, are the Flyers the team we saw in the beginning of the year? Or are they more likely the team we saw toward the end? We're going to discuss that today. So, for the Philadelphia Flyers, like I said, points in early in the season, they were at the top of the Metro. And in the playoffs for pretty much 80% of the season. And unfortunately, in probably the worst fashion and the least, like the one that really makes you want to gouge your eyes out, the Flyers just slowly, painfully lost that positioning, ultimately being out of a playoff spot. And I think for the Flyers, it was a good lesson for some of the younger guys on this team and just not to take it for granted that they had a good position and it just fell off. And maybe the lack of leadership on this team, at least on the ice, maybe not from Tortorella, but on the ice, it kind of became evident. So the first line, you got Tyson Foerster, Sean Couturier, Matvei Michkov. I love Foerster and Michkov. Jump them right into Couturier's line. I hope that Tortorella actually does that. I think they should do that. Tippett, Frost, and Konechny is your second line. Again, a pretty solid second line. Third line, Joel Farabee, Scott Laughton, and Bobby Brink. Again, pretty solid. I mean, if Joel Farabee could be more of the version we saw from him 2 years ago than last year, I think that would be a welcome addition. He had a rough season last year, and I think he's going to be motivated this year to turn those numbers around. Fourth line, you got Noah Cates, Ryan Poehling, and Garnet Hathaway. Again, serviceable fourth line. Like this whole top six, the top four lines here, pretty solid for the Flyers. And then comes the defense. All right, so Cam York, Travis Sanheim is your top pair. Nick Seeler and Jamie Drysdale is your second pair. And then Yegor Zamola and Rasmus Ristolainen. Okay, so obviously I like Cam York. I like Travis Sanheim. It's pretty solid. Seeler on any second line of defense should give you a genuine concern. And then Jamie Drysdale, who had a little bit of a rough start in Philly last year. We'll see how that goes. Again, you look at the name Ristolainen on the third pair, you would think that this is a good defense, but he really has struggled in Philadelphia. He's been injured a lot. He spent a lot of last season on the IR. So for the Flyers, it's like, really not having Ryan Ellis really shows in this lineup. And I think for the Flyers right now, it's really a matter of can they get enough scoring to kind of score their defensive issues. Now, I think the good thing is because Tortorella is the coach, he's a really good defensive-minded coach. He's going to get every last little squeeze out of these defensemen that he can. But is that genuinely going to be enough? Because this roster, I hate to be honest here, but Nick Seeler is probably an AHL defenseman. And at this point, for the Flyers, that is probably one of the biggest things holding them back is that defense. Because goaltending could be hit or miss here. Like, you've got Sam Ersson and Fedotov, who should be good. But again, should and are two different things. So Ersson had moments of greatness last year, and then also moments of real, things are not going well right now. Fedotov actually played fairly well-ish. He didn't get enough games in, so for me to sit here and say he was really good or really bad, we didn't have enough of a sample size. He came in at the trade deadline in a horrible situation. This was not a position for him to succeed. I think this year, clean slate, full training camp, full summer in North America, he's going to be better suited to win and succeed at this point than he was last year. So we'll see how that goes. I expect Fedotov to eventually be the starter over Ersson, but we'll see how much of a leash Tortorella gives. With that said, I think power play, obviously adding a guy like Michkov is definitely going to make that better. Farabee, I think, should be better. Forster, those guys coming in, it's going to make their power play better. They struggled on the power play last year. I expect that to improve. Penalty kill, we know how Tortorella is about defense, so he's going to really prioritize making sure that defense is pretty solid. They've got guys like Lawton and Paling, Cates and Konechny on the penalty kill, and I think those are you're pretty much your John Tortorella's like most reliable favorite guys if you're on his penalty kill. That's definitely flattering. So that seems to be where we're at now. Maybe Couturier ends up there, depending on what they end up doing. Um, Kind of surprising he's not on either of those pairs. Um, they need a healthy Couturier. That's going to be really important. He's been a guy that got hurt at the end of last season. That really tanked things for the Flyers. That was like the final nail in the coffin. So he needs to be back and healthy. How is that goalie tandem going to be, right? Because Ersson was so up and down last year. You want to see a lot more consistency from him next year. So we'll see how that goes for him. And same thing for Fedotov. Like, we're going to see really what he is at the NHL level this year and not indicative of what happened at the end of last season. For the Flyers, I still think this is going to be a good season for the Flyers. And what is your definition of a good season? Because I have them missing the playoffs, but I think it's going to be a good season. I think because they're not going to be a bottom feeder. You're going to see the emergence of Forster, the return of Farabee, hopefully. Matvei Michkov obviously coming in is a huge deal. We're going to see the future in between the pipes. Fedotov is going to get a lot of starts, hopefully. So for the Flyers, yeah, it's going to be a developmental year, which means a lot of growing pains and probably a couple of tough losing streaks. But with that said, you have enough veteran leadership and a really strong head coach in John Tortorella where they're going to be a difficult team to play against every single night, which means the Flyers are going to be in games that maybe they shouldn't be, and maybe winning games that they shouldn't be either. So I have them finishing with 82 points this season. Like I said, that's a respectable season. Unfortunately, it means they missed the playoffs this year. It might even be a little bit of a dip from where they were last year, but I think that when you consider where they were last year, I think it was just they really overachieved early on, and then we started to see, the reality of this team later in the season with injuries and goalie issues and the Carter Hart thing. Like there was and Ryan Ellis thing. How quickly we forget that kind of stuff. I think for the Flyers, they have their guys that they want, and I think we're going to see a much better version of the Flyers this season, and maybe not necessarily in terms of winning all the time, but more cohesive. And I think Tortorella now really is sinking his teeth into this team. The culture for some of the young guys is going to be established on day one. It's not going to be a transition from some of the veterans that have been here for a while. Like they have guys coming in with a clean slate. Tortorella is going to get out of them what he wants. And I think we're going to really start to see that this year. So let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.